Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. Really happy you're all here with us today. So if this is your first webinar with Teikametrics, welcome. If you're back again, you'll probably recognize my face. I'm Andrew Waber. I'm the Director of Insights over here at Teikametrics. You may have seen kind of Liz on some of the emails if you registered early. Liz just took to step out for a personal matter, but I'm really happy to be here with Chen, the co-founder of PickFu. Hi, Justin. How you doing?
Hey. Glad to be here, Andrew.
Great. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about using crowdsourced e-commerce data to really move past your competition, really put your best foot forward on any marketplace you're selling. Kind of Amazon's going to be a general focus, but we kind of branch off into kind of how you can use this across other places as well. So just a few housekeeping notes before we get started, and there's other people kind of still filter in. Keep in mind this is being recorded, and you will receive a full recording of this presentation roughly 24 hours from now, and also the presentation deck as well. So you can kind of go through at your own pace, however you like to learn. Additionally, you'll see a questions box at the bottom or side of your screen, depending on what client you're using. At any point during the presentation, you can pop in a question there, and we'll get to them kind of the end of the presentation as much as we can. But again, don't feel that you have to wait till the end. You can pop those in at any time any question comes up. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So first off, just a little bit about Teikametrics. If you don't know about us, we're a technology platform, and what we do is either you can just use our software by itself, or you can use our team of expert analysts that we have on hand. You want that extra hands-on keyboard help to really grow your sales across the most profitable marketplaces. So Amazon, Walmart, eBay, and really help with the advertising portion, but then also layer on market intelligence to help make you make better decisions based on the competitive environment, where your products are ranking versus their products, et cetera. You can kind of see some of the brands we work with here, and kind of across all the brands we work with, we're optimizing close to $7 billion worth of GMV on Amazon, obviously, and now growing channels. eBay's the newest one. Walmart now we've been doing for over a year now and seeing a lot of success there. So it's a little about Teikametrics. So Justin, if you could tell us a little bit about PickFu.
Yeah, sure. So PickFu is a service that I co-founded back in 2008. It's a website that essentially acts like an online focus group. So in a PickFu poll, you ask a single question. This question could be about anything. It could be about your ideas or a product design or a feature, even a product packaging concept. And what happens is we have a group of over 10,000 US respondents that we call the PickFu panel, and they're ready to provide instant written feedback, honest feedback within a matter of minutes, with some of those polls finishing within 30 minutes or an hour. And so the feedback that they provide can actually guide how you develop and market your products so that you use data to make better decisions.
Awesome. So let's get into the agenda and kind of talk through what we're going to be going through today. So the first is really talking about your kind of presence on Amazon and your marketplaces, and really the importance of a storefront kind of branding and how that impacts advertising to a high degree. I'll kind of talk a little bit about that as well. And going along with that, what are really the best practices about retail readiness? And that kind of dovetails with what Justin's going to talk about, which is kind of, okay, when you're crowdsourcing, when you're looking for that extra bit of opinion, what are the pieces that you'll want to look for in that situation? And, when do you want to involve shoppers, and what decisions are they going to help you make? And then Justin will kind of talk a little bit, again, more about how PickFu works in particular, and then we'll wrap up with, again, some Q&A at the very end. So again, as questions as they come up, just feel free to pop them in there. We'll get through as many as we can at the end here. So let's talk about Storefront. On Amazon, this is super important. You're going to see more and more retailers do stuff around this. You are seeing Walmart already put this into action. But even just focusing on Amazon, the biggest thing here is, if you're a brand selling on Amazon, this should be a really high priority for you to make a really nice experience here. Because think about it, unless you're if you're the biggest brand out there, they're already putting resources into this, but even if you're smaller, you have an opportunity with your storefront to kind of showcase trust, instill that in the consumer. A lot of consumers, obviously, they're coming to Amazon, they may buy from a brand they don't necessarily recognize, but instilling trust in them, so it's not just kind of a list of products, which is what Amazon will obviously generate for you. It is kind of a list of the products you're selling. It doesn't necessarily instill that trust, right? And you're kind of relying on just the consumer to kind of make a willy nilly decision. This is really an opportunity for you to have a branded experience on Amazon outside of the product page. So, right, the benefits and features here are kind of, obviously, I don't need to, let's say, read them all out. But I think one of the biggest things is Amazon does prioritize this, is they look for brands that have this storefront, and that will impact your organic ranking to some degree. Now, the exact degree is obviously up for debate, but it makes a difference. And additionally, this is super helpful if you're brand registered and you're also spinning up sponsored brands ads, because those ads, obviously, they can point to individual product pages. They can also point to your own storefront, and you want to have a great experience there. Someone comes there, it's like, hey, I like the products that maybe showed up there. Let me look at some others. Give them a really nice experience. It's shoppable photos. It's lifestyle imagery. You want to give people a really great sense of, this is how we use our products. This is the type of person that buys our products. It's all the things you can do with our products. There's a lot you can do with this, and they give you a lot of leeway to do that. Take advantage. It really does make a difference here. And Justin can talk about this, but I know when I've seen surveys just of the general public at large, consumers are looking for this. When they go to a marketplace, they want to see information from that brand that shows them, like, okay, I have the information you need to actually click buy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of retail readiness. Having a storefront is kind of, it's an upper level function, but retail readiness is kind of obviously this larger aspect, and kind of we'll go into a couple of those things here, but it's super important kind of as you're thinking about, okay, how am I utilizing the data that I might use PickFu for to help with my product development or my product detail pages. These are some additional things that you really want to have kind of this baseline. Now, you can obviously make tweaks to it, but this is important to keep in mind as you go. Obviously, staying in stock. It's really, really important. And obviously, like with the concerns around supply chain right now, top of mind, I'm sure, for a lot of sellers. But it's important to, again, always stay in stock. Even if you go out of stock for even an hour or two, that can impact your organic ranking for months, depending on your product, where it's at. And so it's important, I think, when you're thinking in the context of ads, if you're in danger of going out of stock, if you're kind of whittling down your supply, you've launched these in ads across a keyword that's performing really well, maybe more than your expectations, it may hurt, but you need to pause down those ads, because it's not great to run ads up to the point of out of stock. Now people are hitting your page, seeing out of stock, that will impact your organic ranking for a long time. So really keep this in mind, and this is always why a system like ours can kind of help in that way, but we're not obviously the only game in town. But again, worth keeping in mind here. Competitive price obviously goes kind of without saying, but you need to win the buy box. And if you have other sellers of your product, winning the buy box is incredibly important. Your ads will not run if you're not winning the buy box. So I'm sure that's a concern that many people have, but just reiterating here, that's part of retail readiness. Additionally, product imagery. Consumers need validation. Product imagery helps with that. And that doesn't just mean I'm going to have one product shot and of the front and the back, and that's it. You need to, the motivation for these consumers is going to be very different depending on product category, or even within your product category, what will motivate different consumers. It might be a very detailed product shot that shows very detailed notes about exactly what's on the packaging. It may include lifestyle imagery, shows how you use the product. It may include text overlaid on the imagery that just shows, hey, here are potential uses, that kind of lays them out. There's any number of kind of different image styles that you can use here. And there's almost no, you can use them all, because again, you don't know necessarily what consumers really going to help. Obviously, PickFu can help kind of nail down exactly really what's going to get you the most impact. But consumers are looking for a lot of images. I mean, generally, this is something, again, along a similar study I saw a couple of years ago. You're seeing that consumers are really looking for, at least 6 product images around that amount. And even still, though, you'll see even top performers across Amazon may not even be delivering that many. So the consumer's desire there for more images, more information, and it's incumbent upon you as the seller to provide that for them, so you're really alleviating their concerns. And alongside that is A+ content or enhanced content on Walmart. That's the below the fold content. Now Amazon's kind of opened this up a little bit more in the past couple of years, so that you have a lot more leeway to kind of put in there what you feel kind of similar to the your product storefront, or your brand storefront rather. Now, this is really important. And not that everyone goes to the A+ content, but the people that do, it makes a big difference. So if someone's really investing in the product, they're going to scroll down the page. If you don't have anything there, or if you just kind of got a text description, they can go to a competitor and they can get a very much more richer product experience, goes very in detail about the benefits of the product, again, lifestyle imagery, the whole, you can put a lot in there. It makes a difference. So really consider that. And additionally, this was a study at my previous role at Salsify. We kind of looked across the top 10% of product pages by a bestseller rank across categories. And what you saw was product pages that had A+ content, they were much more likely to be in that top 10% of sales rank versus products in the bottom 10% of sales rank, which are much less likely to have A+ content. So really keep this in mind. This puts you in better company. And when consumers are comparing and contrasting, if you have this kind of content, again, it's going to put you in better company vis-a-vis your competitors. Okay, so kind of a couple do's and don'ts. So first, understand the attributes that you need to spell out properly categories. Stuff like PickFu can kind of help maybe illuminate what you really want to put out there. But categorization is super important. On Walmart, if you don't properly categorize your products, you will not be discoverable, period. Like on Walmart, we actually see that across a number of products. So this is obviously super important about Walmart. Also important on Amazon when it comes to those key terms that, again, is what Amazon's going to use to match your products organically. It will also help you place ads as well. So really keep in mind, what should you really be putting there, right? That's understand those elements, whether you're using PickFu, whether you're using another service, but really what are those elements, and make sure they get in your product pages. Consistency is important. Now, it's not to say that you want to have an identical presence across each and every marketplace, but you want to have consistency. Is the product imagery the same? What you don't want is, right, someone goes to your website, they see a completely different product shot than what you've got on Amazon. It kind of, you want to instill trust. That kind of breeds distrust. Oh, wait, am I getting the right product? Is this kind of some shady seller? So can you have consistency when it comes to that, right, imagery, attributes, language, right? Or how you spell out what this product does, are you doing that in a very similar way so it's consistent from marketplace to marketplace if people are shopping around? And right, there's basic listing requirements, but it's really important you go beyond that, right? A+ content, it's not necessary. You can get a product up on Amazon without it, but Amazon A will have some additional levers they can pull to kind of prioritize products that have that type of additional content. Same thing with Walmart. And additionally, right, consumers are looking for this stuff. So you got to, you're giving them what you want by kind of going beyond just the basics to get your listing up there. It's not what it's about. Really, Retail Readiness is going beyond the basic and getting, putting yourself in the best position. And going back to the basics, you also need to do the basics too, is that all these seller performance requirements regarding shipping, communication, you really make sure, know what those are, get yourself prepared to adhere to them, because what you don't want obviously is to, for example, right, have a review request insert in your product when you ship it out of Amazon. That's going to get you suspended from Amazon. That's obviously not something anyone wants to go through. So keep that in mind as well as you're obviously going live on Amazon or any other marketplace. Know what those are, adhere to them. And the don'ts. If you're jumping into a marketplace, whether it's Amazon or Walmart or another one, if you have lingering questions around your inventory, and especially now or your supplier relationships, can you service that demand? Maybe take a step back, because what you don't want is, okay, I got this product page up, it looks great. Oh, now suddenly it's doing really well, better than I would have hoped, and now we can't service the inventory. We're gonna have to pause down, especially during a key period like Q4. That's a bad place to be. So this is like super important as you're thinking about maybe moving to a new marketplace. This is obviously something very, it should be top of mind. So I talked about consistency, but I said don't be identical. And the reason is because each marketplace is a little different. What you can see, and this is something that obviously maybe PickFu can help with, it's also something that you can also see within your own advertising data and your performance data, is there's certain things that work better on one marketplace versus another. The details that, if I take my Amazon product page and I just port it over directly to Walmart, well, some of the categorization will be very different. On eBay, categorization is everything. This is how people narrow down their searches. So you need to make sure you adhere to that. You also make sure that, again, if there's a difference in the type of shopper, do you want to tweak the language slightly so it's, again, using language that they're more likely to use when they're searching, right? There's some differences there. So just keep in mind that you want to, again, have consistency, but not just be, cookie cutter approach and say, I'm done, right? There's going to be changes you'll want to make. Every time you go into a new marketplace or you're launching a new product, you're getting that product out, expecting immediate success is not going to be great, right? This is a long-term play. Advertising plays into that. Advertising can help you kind of drive volume that then shows Amazon this product is relevant. We should rank you higher organically. So maybe then a couple months later, you can kind of pull back the lever on advertising a little bit. You don't have to be quite as aggressive because you've driven that sales volume initially. But across Amazon, across these more established marketplaces, when you get your product live, expecting immediate success is not going to be realistic. You have to kind of have this longer view in terms of what's going to be a success for you as a brand. And right, same thing with like when you employ if you use a company like PickFu, or you use a company invest to advertise, there's a time commitment necessary. And obviously we can help with like analysts and things to kind of help take some hands or keyboard help from off your plate. But this is it's nothing is static on Amazon or these marketplaces in general. There are always new competitors coming in. There's changes to the algorithm that you may not expect. There's changes to the supply chain. There's changes to their fulfillment, and you need to be constantly adjusting to those changes. And a set it and forget it, even in the context of retail readiness, is not going to do it, right? This is a constant flow, and your ability to kind of stay on top of that is just generally best practice. So with that kind of, okay, you set the foundation, you maybe gotten kind of the approaches, but now I'm passing it up to Justin, who can talk about, okay, now you're ready to maybe do some tweaks based on what consumers are saying, and he can talk a little bit more about that.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so let's start by talking about what do winning sellers already know. Next slide. So winning sellers already know that you win by listening to your customers. So there's probably a bunch of human feedback that you're already getting and you're paying attention to. So you're looking at your listings, making sure you answer every question that someone posts, you're responding to reviews, you're asking for more reviews, and then you're digging deep into why people are returning your product. And so all of this is super valuable information from your existing customers. Definitely keep doing that. Next slide. So all of these actions are critical, but they're reactive. So once you see them, the customer may already have the product in their hands, and they may have moved on to a different product. So especially if it was a negative experience. So the great thing about crowdsourcing your data is that you can involve shoppers much earlier in your process. So your product doesn't even have to necessarily be ready for sale yet before you can start gathering feedback. And in fact, it's actually better to start testing at that stage, because then you actually have time to course correct in case something's not resonating with your audience. So the more that you can anticipate what shoppers want, the more of a competitive edge that you're going to have. So get those shoppers involved early before you even start selling, and you're going to have a lot more confidence when you go to market. So let's talk about how you crowdsource shopper input. So this slide gives a basic overview of how PickFu works. It's a pretty simple process. You input a single question. Like I said, this question could be anything. Our site offers a bunch of suggestions for how to test main image or product packaging, but you could also just write your own. Once you do that, you choose who should answer the question. By default, it'll just be a general audience, US right now, but maybe your product is targeted towards women, and or maybe a pet product that you want to reach cat owners or dog owners. We have all those different types of things. And then our system reaches out to everyone in our network that matches those criteria. And then the answers start coming in immediately so that you can get your data and make decisions within the same day. So real quickly, who is the PickFu panel? At the moment, all of our respondents are in the US. We pay them a small stipend so that they are incentivized to do a good job and provide helpful input. They've signed a non-disclosure agreement, so anything that you share with them won't go beyond the poll, and they do not see the results. And finally, we use multiple layers of quality control to ensure that everyone represents themselves honestly and provides the best experience for sellers. And we're constantly improving that system to make sure that we're curating the highest quality respondents. And so we offer a lot of ways to customize this poll audience so that it reflects your target customer, which we'll see on the next slide. Yeah, one of the more popular ways to target is actually targeting by the platforms that they shop on. So Andrew was talking about how it may be different on Walmart versus Amazon. So maybe you want to target Amazon Prime members or people who use Walmart.com or Etsy or eBay. We have that kind of targeting. But we also have a lot of behavioral traits. So, how frequently you use nutritional supplements, or maybe your exercise habits, or if you're interested in hiking or gardening, all of those things. And you can combine these traits up to 4 different ones, so you can get highly specific. Let's say you're selling a high-end face cream for women, and you could potentially ask questions for women over 45 who make 60K a year and frequently use body care products. So that's kind of how granular you can get with the targeting.
Yeah, and I mean, just to chime in here, this can also help. I think, results you might see here. I mean, going back to the advertising point of view,
Yeah.
is if anyone's kind of familiar with Amazon DSP, they have a lot of demographic related targeting that you can do. So some of the results you see here, it's like, oh, hey, so we're seeing really good, impact with this specific group, with this specific interest group. There's ways you can actually take that information and then apply it to your advertising, whether it's either, we see people, especially like right now, kind of they're seeding demand for Q4. So they're utilizing some of these lifestyle segments within their advertising, getting these products in front. So this could kind of, again, some of this data can then help you kind of target your advertising as you're just kind of seeding demand.
Yeah, for sure. So the name of this session is Crush Your Competition. So asking customers when you're evaluating the competition is a really effective way to do that. With PickFu, you can actually put your product up against your competitor in a completely private environment. So this is totally off Amazon, off Walmart. This is not running anything live. And people will tell you directly why they would or wouldn't choose your product over the other one in this kind of like synthetic environment. So here's a test that we're showing that's testing 2 different hairbrushes. 50 women were asked, looking at the reviews, price, image, and title, which brush would you click on and why? And after reading through all the responses, the seller understands that the white brush wins out because it's $1 cheaper, it has more reviews, and because of the shape and the color of the brush. In this case, the customer just took a screenshot of existing search results, but there's also other ways you can do this test. You could just run the main images against each other. You could adjust the stars and the price to be the same so that it results in a level playing field. Because this is all a synthetic environment, like you can modify it so that you can compare apples to apples, so to speak. Like if you're only working on the main image, if you're going against someone with a lot of reviews, and that obviously you can't control that yet. So we definitely recommend normalizing that data. Next slide. Yep. So like I said, the earlier you can involve your shoppers, the better. So this seller is testing whether people would even be interested in buying his product, and it's a hibachi style tabletop grill. And so what's great about this kind of open-ended test is that before you sink thousands of dollars into inventory, you can make sure that there's a market for what you want to sell. And you can start to understand what's involved in that market and what customers are thinking as they're considering a product. So on the next slide, we're going to dive into a little bit more detail on some of the feedback that this seller got. In this particular poll, he targeted 50 self-proclaimed avid home cooks, which is his demographic. And when they were asked whether they would buy this hibachi grill to cook with friends and family, some answered definitely yes and made comparisons to fondue parties and other social gatherings. But others had questions about the price, whether they would actually use it, which is common for these kinds of purchases, what they would cook on it, whether it was safe to use inside. All great questions. Now the seller knows these particular concerns need to be addressed either in the product itself or the packaging, how it's marketed, maybe the infographics are on the product listing page. And so it's a really good way to know up front so that you can cut off the questions or the negative reviews before going live.
Yeah, and I mean, and you can use this information. I mean, I think it's like things around like safe to use in home, especially if there's something like this. Like you can, I mean, in the context of Amazon, like you can put that in the title. So it's like if someone searches for like in-home grill, like these are definitely insights that even as you're spinning up a product in Amazon, like, hey, I think there's a market for this, but like understanding what the concerns are here before you even launch a product is really helpful as you're getting your product up there. These are also things you could learn from reviews, but right, you won't get those reviews until weeks, months down the line. So this kind of helps short circuit that, right? And then you can use it in your product content.
Yep, exactly. And so just to close the loop on this, this poll actually turned into a really successful product that launched on Indiegogo. And you can see that it's also a growing brand on Amazon with a rating of 4.5. So it's always awesome to see these kind of go full circle with our customers. Another early test you can run is what to name your product. So talking about, starting from the very beginning, your brand name is vital marketing that creates that first impression. So you want to ensure that the name you choose communicates what you want and avoids unintended associations. So on the next slide, we'll dig into this a little bit more, but basically the seller was testing a line of urban home products. The two different names are Urbanian and Urbanox. And so the feedback was many found that the name Urbanox was kind of negative, associating it with the word obnoxious, calling it really strange, while others actually liked Urbanian because it sounded more professional. Obviously, there could be more options than this, but between the two, people liked Urbanian over Urbanox. Yes, so and naming feedback is even more important if you're outside the US and looking to sell into the US market. There's a lot of subtleties in American English and even culturally that you want to make sure that you account for. So on the next slide, we'll dig into this a little bit more. This particular seller was testing a new online designer homeware shop. The seller tested against 50 women in the US, and they were testing hiatus state versus hiatus studio. Really overwhelming victory for hiatus studio. And on the next slide, we'll see some of the feedback. Now, hiatus state is not linguistically wrong. So if you were just doing this kind of in a bubble outside the US, it probably would have spell checked and grammar checked fine. But to American ears, the hiatus state came out across like sounding like a blank state of mind. And so some of the quotes were talking about how the idea of a lobotomy came to mind, that somebody's just out, or they're gone out of business. And so these aren't things that you want associated with your brand. And so even if even if the name sounds okay, like you don't want any unintended innuendos associated with your name. Your logo and graphic images are also important to the success of your product. Obviously, shoppers react differently to different colors and imagery, more than you would think. I think teams, especially marketing teams, tend to feel really tied to a particular brand style, and that prevents them from testing more. And the way that we like to say at PickFu is that you shouldn't feel that this stifles your creativity. It should actually kind of unleash it, right? Because now you can actually test in drastically different directions thematically, in a safe environment, in a private environment, and actually just see like, oh, maybe we're traditionally a very lighthearted brand, but maybe what if we tried a dark themed product, and maybe that actually tests well. So we shouldn't feel too worried about launching something like that. In this particular case, the customer was testing different logos for a new sushi restaurant. And they all look pretty good, but it's pretty clear which one won in this situation.
Yeah, and I mean, and bringing this back, I think to, when you're in a marketplace, I think even, beyond imagery, but just general, I think it's easy as you're going through this process of developing this product or getting this product to market and tweaking it. It's very easy, I think, to get caught up in, hey, this is the language you want to use. It's like you're in your own head, as a case may be, even collectively. And this can kind of be a nice gut check in terms of, okay, how do consumers like actually feel about this, and what, maybe what's the language that they use to kind of describe this. And that helps because it's not marketing professionals that are searching for products, it's consumers. And consumers, I mean, I see this on Amazon a lot, where even outside of electronics, where maybe it's necessary to have like a model number in the product name, you'll see this in like for health and beauty products. Some brands will put a model number or some like in the product name, because like, well, this is how we categorize it internally. But it's like, that's not how a consumer cares, and now you're wasting space in that title. So there's things that, obviously that's like a very crude example, but it happens. So I think using a service like PickFu, it helps you get kind of in without like bringing in a consultant, right? You're kind of bringing in a gut check, as it were, on how consumers actually feel about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's even an example that we had. I wish I had put it in this slide deck, but it was, when you're developing a product, you think you know what it is, and so even what the product is and the packaging around it, you're going to assume like, oh, well, we obviously know that this is like I think the product was um, a door opener where you didn't have to use your hand, so like you could use your foot, right? And so it was packaged in like a plastic bag, and it had some weird name like Dr. Stepper or something like that, but like you really couldn't tell what it was. And so the poll was, do you even know what this is? And so someone just put the picture up, the seller just put the picture up, said like, do you even know what this was? And like no one knew what it was, like because it was just like this metal thing inside a plastic bag. Like the packaging, was not descriptive at all. The logo was not descriptive. And so you could think that it's perfect, but until you put it out there and just ask them like, hey, do you even know what this is? Or how would you search for this in the Amazon store is a really interesting way to just to make sure the thing that you're selling is even what people think it is, right? So just bridge that gap because yeah, when you're working so closely to it, you're worried about just like getting the supply in, getting it to Amazon, like all these other things, but just take a step back and ask your potential customers like, am I even on the right track with all these different decisions? Let's see. Yeah, so the next one, let's talk about the main image. Obviously, testing visuals extends to the main image, and that's probably the most common thing that we actually see at PickFu. You could potentially spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars testing an image with ads or driving traffic to a listing, doing a live A/B test. And the worst part about doing a live A/B test is that one of your options is by nature losing money, right? It's not converting as well. And so instead of doing that right up front and using a poor live image, you can pre-test these main images and make adjustments before even going live. So in this example of the baby food containers, you can see that most shoppers like seeing the package that the containers come in, and this is a trend that we're seeing across a lot of products now. So if this was your product, you could potentially make a few more versions of this package with the package in it to make sure that you really nail the main image. I think there's even more improvements that this option C could have to better use the white space and all of that. So yeah, I mean, all of these by themselves actually look great, but I think option C with the package, like it just looks more complete.
Yeah, and it may mean that you still use these images, but it's like which is one do you actually list first? And right, this would show you,
Exactly.
hey, I want to list that one first because that's what's going to populate in
Hmm.
ads or obviously on the search page itself.
Yep. On the topic of packaging, that's another visual asset that you could be testing early on in your product development process. So one of our favorite stories is from Thrasio, which some of you may know is a FBA acquirer. So in 2018, they purchased a brand called Angry Orange, which is a pet deodorizer product, and it was doing about 2 million a year when they bought it. Using PickFu, the team at Thrasio ran 4 polls across 800 US consumers, what they thought. And at the time, the orange bottle wasn't something that was readily on the market. But by using the PickFu data, the creative team was able to justify this investment, and they spent $50,000 retooling the packaging to be able to source this bottle design. And it's been worth it. Last year, the brand sold over $30 million all using like the new branding that they tested with PickFu. So Thrasio use it at this time. They use it for every single product that they acquire. The creative team over there, they have a saying: "The PickFu gods have spoken," and that's what they say because they know that what shoppers want is much more important than what designers and marketers on their team want.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of these things where it's like if you looked at that second bottle, like, yeah, maybe the first thing that comes to your head is like hot sauce, but
Yeah.
that's like what I thought. But in the case of consumers, like if it catches your attention, and right, keep in mind that if you saw this product by itself with no context, maybe you think hot sauce, but that's not how consumers are seeing it, right? They're seeing it in the context of I searched for
Yep.
odor eliminator, or I searched for something like that. So it's like in that context, it catches your eye and gets you to like, okay, catch your attention, obviously. So like I think that's important. I mean, going back to the kind of getting you out of your own head a little bit, like
Yeah.
it kind of goes into that.
Yeah, and you wouldn't just be testing like your variations against each other, right? Like once you maybe come up with a design, you would test it against all your competitors that you're seeing. And if they're all just like a plain white bottle, then yeah, this is going to pop considerably. So you need to keep that in mind as you're, and that's why you have to keep doing this stuff, right? Because competition keeps changing. Maybe everyone copies the orange bottle. then you got to do something else 6 months down the line. So lastly, I just wanted to talk about branded videos. As you're creating videos with your production team, you want to make the best choices about music and voiceover and graphics and all of that. All of that can be tested separately with different polls on PickFu, or you could just test the final product as this poll did. In this case, the videos for a fitness program, and the seller asked respondents to rate how motivated the video made them to sign up on a scale of 1 to 5. So overall, the video didn't do too well, only getting 2.9 stars. People commented about how the video and audio were too low quality to trust, like the dim lighting and the issues with the production value didn't impress them. The woman speaking sounded like she was reading, so there were issues of the performance as well. So if I were the seller, I would think about reshooting the video. I would probably test the individual components before piecing it all together, just to make sure that everything was nailed individually first. Yeah, and that's all I had on my side.
Awesome. Yeah. So to wrap up, and then we'll get to questions. So again, if you have a question, feel free to pop it in right now. The first is, again, understand the value as you're getting set up, as you're really putting these assets together, the value of having a storefront and really that retail readiness, whether it's on Amazon, Walmart, et cetera, is there's a big gap, and you see this even amongst top sellers, where it's easy for sellers that are doing well to rest on their laurels and not change things. And especially if you're kind of trying to make hay, your ability to change and to put really great content on there helps you separate from the pack. This is what consumers are looking for. It's really, really important. And I mean, to Justin's point, right, there's the ability to kind of know before you go with some of these elements. It makes for a better product launch. And keep in mind, we've talked about this on other webinars. Product launches on a marketplace like Amazon are very capital intensive. A successful product launch requires a lot of money because you need to first advertise to get that initial volume of sales that will then actually give you organic ranks on, like using that grill example, on things like in-home hibachi grill. You might not rank organically for that. You might be on page like 3 or 4 or 5 if you just straight up launch your product because you have no reviews, you don't have many sales. You have to advertise at the top of, let's say, that search, drive volume, and then you can maybe move up to page 1 organically, but you have to kind of buy your way there. Now, if your product, you kind of went to market with something where it's like, well, kind of just, I thought it was good, we thought it was good, and we're going to put money behind it, and great, but you didn't test some of this stuff, like it's setting yourself up for a bad time where you might have to run more advertising spend as you go to really catch that, right? This stuff matters, and you putting the money into making these tweaks early, it saves you money down the line in terms of like really driving sales volume because you're getting better conversions, you're getting better conversion rate, more conversions helps you organically. And I mean, to that, be willing to test pretty much everything on your product page. Nothing is set in stone. Consumer tastes change. And you're going to see this too, that especially, okay, you go through this process with product launch. After a year or two, okay, are you seeing kind of similar growth rates, right? How is that trending? Where are the weaks, are you seeing weak spots in certain products? Are you seeing weak spots on certain types of keywords? And maybe there's something, obviously, there's an advertising portion that plays into that, but additionally, you want to keep up with your product imagery with descriptions based on how people are searching for your product, and that changes over time.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, we can get to questions. So let's see what we got here. So this is from Christopher. This is one from you, Justin. Kind of how does PickFu find the people to kind of be part of the focus group? Kind of what does that process look like? How do you kind of ensure that breadth of a sample there?
Yeah, so we work with third-party panel services that are typically used for traditional market research. If you're doing research studies or doing like longer form type things, but what we do is we have a shorter approach, which leads to faster engagement and faster responses on the customer side. So yeah, we work with professional panels on that side of things.
Yeah, and I mean, I think what's I think really useful about what you guys do in this context is, something that we've been seeing. We're putting together right now on a benchmark report with category by category, stats in there. And what we're finding is that when you look at, even on a category by category basis, you see pretty marked differences when it comes to obviously advertising costs, but conversion rates, et cetera. And it really speaks to the idea that even on Amazon, even if you just pulled just straight up Amazon shoppers, but you didn't narrow it down to, let's say, anything that's kind of more closer to your specific market, you're probably going to get like really mixed signals, because the people that go to Amazon, it's now just such a wide swath of the consumer base that yeah, right, it's pretty much everybody's going there at least a little bit. Is you're kind of setting yourself up again to not get great information because that you can rest on. I mean, when I think about a category like sports and outdoors, it's a big category on Amazon. But even within that category, there's going to be substantial differences from a seller to seller. If I'm selling ski equipment, my peak season and how I need to promote is very different than someone that's selling, kind of an all season, like running shorts or something like that, right? That they're very huge differences in terms of how people shop, how they convert. And I think that's worth bringing up here, that in the context of this, right, you need to have that granularity does help.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of the next question again, and please feel free to get them in, is around kind of expected costs during product launch, kind of during in terms of advertising costs. So we've seen this, range. Obviously, there's a range here. I'd say generally though, when you're launching a product, after you've kind of done some research, okay, you're confident in the product, the cost to do so, you may need to go past your desired margin. I would say like almost expect to do that, especially in a competitive marketplace. And the reason why this cost is so high is because what you want to do when you're a essentially unknown brand launching on Amazon, or you're an established brand but it's a new product in kind of a new market, is establishing product market fit is about, you got to, right, we talked about this earlier, buying your way to the top, which means what are the most popular search terms in your space. And you can do this, Amazon Brand Analytics has this. But to do that, those are obviously going to be, if they're the most well-trafficked, they're also probably the most expensive on a cost per click basis. So, but that's the only way you're going to drive significant volume. If you're kind of a newer brand, I'm launching a new product, but we haven't been on Amazon that long, or if we're launching in a new vertical and people don't know us in that vertical, if you're just advertising on your own branded terms, it'll look very efficient, but you're not going to be driving volume that will drive you up organically on those pages that'll actually matter, that are going to get you potentially incremental sales with someone that doesn't know what brand they want yet. So we recommend generally take that kind of a narrow view, small basket of keywords, generic keywords that are going to drive volume, and be willing to spend to get to the top there, and be willing to do that for maybe a month or two, drive that volume, get the reviews in, and then you can kind of start pulling that lever back a little bit, because, okay, well, now I'm ranking number 5 on this big popular term. I don't need to pay as much to be number 1, right? I'm willing to step back if the price gets too high. So you just keep that in mind. And on Walmart, if you're doing the same thing, expect, again, similar costs. However, I'd say Walmart is still fairly young. I'd say in a lot of categories, you may be, one of the first people to get in there. It's a little bit easier to kind of get your way to the top. It's also a first price auction, which is kind of a different element. If you're not familiar with that, you pay, if you bid $1, you will pay $1 on Amazon second price auction. So if I bid $1, next person bids 50 cents, I'm paying 51 cents. So different dynamics there at play, but also helps you with the costs. And I don't see any more questions, but I guess, final question for you, Justin, I guess is, when you think about kind of over the past year in particular, obviously it's like, okay, you have more shoppers, obviously shopping online generally. How have, I guess, folks that are using PickFu, I mean, obviously we're talking in the context of online marketplaces, have, how has that, I guess, changed, kind of the nature of what people are testing generally? I think I would love to just hear a little bit more about that, and maybe just generally from you.
Let's see. Well, I guess we've definitely seen more sophistication amongst our customers and the types of polls that they're running. I mean, in the very beginning, it was literally just testing main images, and now we're seeing a lot more of the competitive stuff, kind of mimicking the marketplace, even the actual search results and all that kind of stuff. A lot of 3D render, especially if you're selling in a marketplace like Wayfair, like we see a lot of 3D renders on Wayfair, and that's really awesome. Actually, we see some amazing stuff coming out of there. So I think it's just more sophistication around there. People testing out buying interests and behaviors. So, when it comes to these sellers' priority around like what are you looking for in your secondary images and videos? Like, are you even looking at that kind of stuff? We actually see some sellers like asking that to our consumers to know like how much priority to put into those secondary assets. A lot of infographic type testing. And I think what's really cool is seeing people use those images much more effectively than just showing, 5 shots of the same product and from different angles, which is interesting, but not really helpful. So, having, specific lifestyle or infographics addressing the issues around, is it safe to use indoors? Is it washable? Like you can have a very good image that like conveys that in a real world application. And those are like very sophisticated sellers that we see. And even more so when you do the full circle thing, right? You read through the reviews and you're seeing like, oh, okay, people still aren't getting the fact that this is, washable. Like I'm just going to put a secondary image that like really highlights it, and then testing that on PickFu, like, okay, how effectively does this communicate the fact that it's washable, and just like nail it home. So like every one of those images, is serving a very particular purpose.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and yeah, definitely something that you gotta, as a seller, just keep up with because
Yeah.
tastes change, and to your point, you may make a change and it may not have the desired effect. So it's being able to kind of iterate on that is super
Yeah.
important. Well, with that, I think we wrap up a little early today, but this was really terrific. Thanks, just for hopping on. Thanks everyone on the line for coming here as well. Again, you'll get a full recording of this presentation and the slide deck roughly 24 hours from now. So keep an eye on your email for that, and hope you can join us for the next one. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.